All right, greatest common factor, least common multiple, simplifying and converting. All right, so what is GCF, greatest common factor, we just said. So when we say greatest common factor, we're talking about the biggest number that will go into both of the two numbers that are given. And I will show you later how to do this on the calculator. But one way to do this is to do your factor tree, and you can break it down. That's 2 and 15. 15 is 3 and 5, and break it down to its prime factors. 4 goes to 2 and 2. So common, they both have a 2, and then that's it. So 2 would be the biggest number that divides into both of those. Least common multiple, on the other hand, is the smallest number that both of the numbers will divide into. So here, what you want to do is start listing the multiples. So start at 29, multiple of 29. Excuse me. So 29 times 2 would be 58. 29 times 3 would be 87. 29 times 4, trying to do this in my head, would be 116. And you just keep listing multiples. Well, then you do that for 13. 13 times 2 would be 26. 13 times 3 would be 39. 13 times 4 would be 52. 13 times 5 would be 65. And you're looking for a number that's the same. 13 times 7 would be 91. 13 times 8 would be 104. And you can do multiplication, but you can also think of it as addition. In other words, if I add another 13 right here, I'm going to get 117, which is 13 times 9. I could add another 13 and get 130, which is 13 times 10. And you could do the same thing here. If I do 116 plus 29, that's 145, which is what you get when you multiply it times 5. So you keep doing that until you find the smallest value that both numbers will divide into. Now the issue here is because 29 and 13 are both prime numbers, there's no other thing that will go into them. The only thing they'll both divide into is what you get when you multiply the two numbers. So you have to multiply 29 times 13. So again, I'm doing multiplication in my head, but 29 times 10 would be 290. And then 29 times 3 is 87. And I know 87 plus 290 would be 377. And again, I'll show you how to do that as well on the calculator. But it's because, again, these two are both prime numbers, so there's nothing else that will go into them, so you can only multiply those two together, and that gives you the only multiple that both will go into. All right, simplify, write each as a mixed number when possible. Okay, you can't write that one as a mixed number because the numerator is smaller than the denominator, so all you can do is simplify. So you ask yourself, how many times does 6 go into 24? It goes into it 4 times. How many times does 6 go into 6? Once. So that reduces to 1/4. Number 4 is written as a mixed number, so what I'm trying to do here is actually simplify the fraction part. So I ask myself, what will go into 12 and 18? So now we're back up to this whole GCF thing. What is the biggest thing that will go into 12 and 18? Well, that's 3. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 3 goes into 18 6 times. Well, what I recognize then is 3 was not the biggest thing because 4 over 6 will reduce. What will go into 4 and 6? 2. 2 goes into 4 2 times. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Now that's completely simplified. If I'd done it correctly at the beginning, what I would have recognized is 6 goes into 12 and 18. 6 goes into 12 2 times. 6 goes into 18 3 times. And I would have saved myself an extra step there. So sometimes you may not know the GCF right off the bat, but it helps if you do because it saves you time and number of steps. Okay, the next problem, the first thing I'm going to do is simplify it first. Then I'm going to write it as a mixed number. So in other words, I'm going to ask myself, okay, what will go into 60 and 48? Well, 12 will. 12 goes into 60. 5 times. 12 goes into 48 4 times. Now, because my numerator, again, is bigger than my denominator, then this will be a mixed number. How many times does 4 go into 5? Once. With how many left over? 1. And my denominator again here was 4. So that would be it as a mixed number. And again, we'll do this on the calculator as well, so you can see. All right. Number 6. Simplify, leave as an improper fraction. So this time we're not changing to a mixed number, we're just simplifying. What will go into 36 and 30? 6 will. 6 goes into 36 6 times. 6 goes into 30 5 times. That's an improper fraction. Write each as a decimal. Use repeating decimals when necessary. So how do you do this? Well, here's where you have to do the little house thing. So you say, how many times does 2 go into 1? Well, it won't. So you do the decimal place and you add a 0. How many times does 2 go into 10? 5. But you have to bring that decimal place up right here. So it's 0.5. Now that's one we know very easily, but that's how you work that. And then if it didn't terminate, be exactly 10 here, then I would have to add another 0 right here, and then add it down here, and then work it out. Write each as a decimal. Okay, so changing a percent to a decimal. And I told you the calculators here don't do it, but it's very easy. To change a percent to a decimal, you just move it 2 places to the left. So that would be 0.22. And it says round to the nearest thousandths, but we don't have to because that one stops there at the hundredths place. And then this one says write as a fraction. Okay, so now we have to be able to read this. That's tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So that's 125 thousandths over 1,000. Now I have to simplify. What will go into both? Well, 5 will. Now there's bigger things probably, but 5 is one I recognize because they end in 5 and 0. So 5 goes into 125. See, 5 to 25 times. 5 goes into 1,000 would be 40 times. That's not right. Sorry, 200 times. All right. Now I'm going to do 5 again. 5 goes into 25, 5 times. 5 goes into 200, 40 times. Then I reduce that. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 40, 8. So then there's my fraction. And again, we'll do this on the calculator as well. But skills you have to be able to do both with and without a calculator.